of my 808. Drop it down for my 808. She likes the sound of my 808. Drop it down for my 808. She likes the sound of my 808. Drop it down for my 808. She likes the sound of my 808. She likes the sound of my 808.
Drop it down for my 808. Drop it down for my 808. Drop it down for my 808. Drop it down for my 808.
She likes the sound of my 808.
Drop it down for my 808.
She likes the sound of my 808.
Drop it down for my 808.
She likes the sound of my 808.
Drop it down for my 808.
Yo, 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 what's up, producers? How y'all doing? Juanton here, back with another Tech House live stream. This is episode 4 weeks in a row. Gonna keep it going. This week we're talking about vocal manipulation and techniques for getting our vocals to sit well in the mix. Before we get into it, a few announcements. Number one, I'm going to be playing my first show since this whole COVID thing started with a crowd, and it's going to be a socially distanced show at the Midway. I'm really excited. I got booked to play before the true legend, Sasha Robati, Sloth Acid. I'm really excited about this show. We got a bunch of other great DJs. Pratt, if you know him, local guy. He's new to playing out, but he's been in the scene for a long time. Playing directly after him, followed by Bruja and then Nima G. So a bunch of cool local talent. Make sure to go support. I'm pretty sure tables are already sold out, but you can jump on the wait list to grab a table if anybody cancels their reservations, which is pretty likely to happen since people try to snag them up pretty quick. So let's see who we got in here. Beehive Music, as always. Anthony Zamoda, what's up, guys? Holla, holla. Christian Miranda, what's up, man? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yep. Glad to see you guys out there, hopefully. It's been too long since I've seen all the homies. As always, tonight we're going to be doing a couple demos, listening. So if you got a track you want to share with us, please send it to Juan at juantonmusic.com during the stream. And we'll make sure to get to it, give you a proper roasting, because that's the only way to get better. Let's see. Finally, beer of the day today, Sierra Nevada Tropical Torpedo. One of my favorite Sierra Nevadas. So crack this guy and get started. Cheers, y'all. I think we're waiting on a track from you, Christian, so send it over, man. All right, so we'll just jump right into it. Show you guys some of the samples that I recorded for us, because it was kind of a pain to try to figure out how to do it while streaming the mic. So gonna put myself out here really quick with completely raw vocals. Pretty embarrassing, so don't roast me too bad. But let me just show you kind of the beat from last week. I changed the bass to use like a 808 style bass, so it's a little different. I'll show it without any vocals on it. Yeah, the vocals are off. She got that. So right away, I think 808s always make me think of booties. So let's see what I got here for some vocal ideas. She got that drop top booty. She got that drop top booty. So we got like drop top booty. That's one I thought up when I was driving a while back. This next one, what was I going for here? Okay. Oh, it's because the Vox channel's off now. My hands up on your hip. Kind of like a rip off of my hips.
Dip, we dip.
There you go.
I got that bass that makes you dip. My bass will make you drop your hips.
For some reason, it was like recording out of time.
My bass will make you drop. Bass will make you drop your hips.
We'll see if that one can work. And then I also recorded like these little grunt chant things. Just a little
Hey, go. Hey,
And I'll show you how I
Yo.
use these in my tracks.
yo,
Just
yo,
Cool.
yo.
So now that you guys have heard my naked vocals, let's see what we can do. So let me know in the chat, should I go drop top or should I go hips? Hips and dips, drop top booty. What do you guys think? DNSB official, what's up, man? Drop top looks like. All right, let's start there.
She got that drop top booty.
Okay, first thing I'm going to do, I basically do this every single time I do vocals. I'm just going to put little Alter Boy Sound Toys plugin. I think I might have shown this before, like my first stream, but we'll go in a little more in depth with it. So the way that little Alter Boy works, it's like a pitch shifting uh, vocal manipulation toy, but it doesn't just do pitch shifting, it does formant shifting. So the difference between pitch shifting and formant shifting is that pitch will actually drop the tone, like the root note of your vocal. So if I was like out of key and I wanted to drop it just down a few semitones, that'd be 2 semitones, 3 semitones, 4 semitones, all the way down to -12 or all the way up 12. So as you can see, this will help you get things in key, help you drop your vocal a little bit. But like a lot of the vocal is in the formants, and it took me a long time to understand what formants are. And to be honest, I still couldn't tell you that well what they are, but I know how they work. And by shifting the formants up and down, you get the feeling that the vocal is going up in pitch or down in pitch without changing the root note. And this is really useful for kind of getting vocals that are pitched up or pitched down without them like losing frequency range, if that makes sense. So yeah, Ultra Boy is a really good plugin. It's August today, say August 17th. So we're looking at about 3 months until Black Friday, and the bundle for Sound Toys always goes from 500, I think, to 250 on Black Friday, and it's like probably the best value you'll get for Black Friday deal, because there's so many plugins in that bundle that are super useful for bass, for manipulating vocals, for adding grit and distortion. So definitely recommend it. Now, little Ultra Boy, what I like to do typically is drop the pitch just a couple to get the tone of my voice a little bit lower, but really use the shift. So let's try that. She got that. She got that. This is on the right track, right? Yeah. She got that. She got that. She got that. She got that.
She got that.
So there's the formants.
Drop. She got that. She got that.
So turn this up a tiny bit so that the peaks don't all the way go to 0 here, because I don't want to clip them.
She got that. Drop top booty. She got that. She got that. She got that. She got that.
Actually, it doesn't sound bad. Let's hear it in the mix.
She got that. Drop top booty. 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 She got that. She got that. She got that. She got that.
She got that. She got that. Drop top booty.
Okay, so I kind of like the high pitch too. So what I'm going to do is actually, let me undo that really quick. Command G, going to put it in a group. I'm going to hit this little button to get my chains. Click this, and I'm going to duplicate the chain. So this will be low. This one will be high. And now on the high one, let's see which one's which. So this is the high one. And then this will be low, so we'll drop that back to, I think, 4 I liked.
She got that. Drop top booty.
So you just kind of want to mix to taste a little bit there.
She got that. Drop top booty. She got that. Drop top booty. She got that. Drop top. She got that.
So I have these backwards, it looks like. So this is actually low. This is high. Wonton hit just like that. I don't know about a hit, man.
She got that drop top booty.
It's kind of cool though. For some reason, I always come up with my vocals when I'm driving. I don't know if you guys have that, but it's like whenever something kind of repetitive doesn't use my brain a lot because it's so automatic, doing something like that, just that's when I have a lot of really creative ideas, which is really unfortunate because trying to capture your ideas while you're driving is not always the best thing to be doing. But I use like voice memos on my iPhone, so yeah, I got a lot of voice memos in there that I'd be pretty embarrassed to share with people. But that's how you get your ideas out, you know.
She got that drop top booty.
Okay, so I'm gonna turn the high one up,
She got that drop top booty.
turn it on at least.
Drop top booty. She got that 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 drop top booty.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw Synoxis on here. Synoxis. It's like the weirdest name. Free G stereo. So here I can just look at the peaks. I'm sure it's basically the same thing as Ableton's, but I think it's to the hundredth, so it's a little more accurate there. And then also it's just nice to be able to leave it open while you're kind of bouncing around between different views and different channels. So I really just want to see where my peaks are. -6 right now.
She got that drop top booty.
One thing with Alter Boy that I did want to talk about. So get this one too. With Alter Boy, you have this little drive knob that's really cool. So you have 3 different modes. One is transpose. That's the one I use most often. Quantize is another one. I just think they're different algorithms. And then there's robot, which really adds a lot of kind of like robotic distortion kind of sounds. I recommend just kind of playing with all of them, just bouncing between them and listening, picking one. I typically do stick with transpose, but let's hear the difference.
She got that. She got that. She got that drop top booty. She got that. She got that. She got that
So it's not even very different
drop
between
top booty.
transpose and
She got
quantize.
that drop top
But you can hear the robot.
She got that
It gets really like
drop top booty.
flangy, flangery. I don't know if that's right, but we're gonna stick with transpose. I don't like that phasey, flangy sound. And then you can just play with the drive. The drive is nice. It's like just using saturation, but it's right here in the plugin, so I can just add a little drive.
She got that drop top booty. She got that drop top booty. She got that drop top booty. She got that
It's also getting louder though.
drop top booty.
Make sure you pay attention to
She
that.
got that
So I'm gonna
drop
use.
top booty.
Whoops, I wanted to have this before it.
She got that.
Yeah, so
She
I'm at
got that
-3,
drop top booty.
-1 without it.
She got that. She got that.
-2.
She got that.
So it's actually a little bit quieter with a drive, which is really cool. That means that we're really saturating it, maybe doing some compression on there, but the peaks are coming down
She got that drop top booty.
just
She
slightly,
got that.
even though we're making the vocal louder.
She got that drop top booty.
And one thing to pay attention to as well is that you're not introducing phase artifacts, because sometimes I do get kind of weird stereo information out of the Alter Boys. And since I'm using 2 of them, I can imagine that that could get even worse. So if you don't know already, I have this mono plugin. If I do Shift M, I key map to it. The way you can key map things is you right click here, hit edit key map, and then as you can see there, capital M or Shift M is what I use for mono. So then click enter and escape to get out of that mode. And now if I do Shift M, I can turn my mono on and off, and it says mono dim. I learned this from a producer that I watched, but he said that when you switch between stereo and mono, because there's like going to be a dip in volume, you want the dip in volume to be a little more exaggerated so that you're kind of like refreshing your ears. Because otherwise, just because it got a tiny bit quieter, you might think that it sounds worse. So having that little change in volume will kind of keep your ears a little fresh when you're going back and forth.
She got that
So in mono,
drop top booty. She got that drop top booty. She got that drop top booty. She got that. She
Solo.
got that drop top booty. She got that drop top booty.
Beehive asks, is there an advantage to using this plugin over manipulating pitch and format using complex pro settings? It's a really good question. So what he's talking about, if you guys haven't seen this before, right here. So I use complex a lot, but you can go to complex pro and you can shift your formants here, and you're going to get a lot of the same kind of like dropping of the vocal, playing with this and playing with your envelope. But in my experience, so like when I first started trying to pitch my vocals, I mean, this is always kind of what I was going for, right? This like deep voice. But I could never really get it with this Complex Pro. And I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the algorithm that's being used for whatever reason. This one can get you some results, but to me, it just was never really pleasing to the ear. And it also can sometimes add like weird artifacts, whereas change that back. Where the what is it called, little altar boy, I always just got really pleasing results, and it's so easy. I mean, this thing is like a little, 2 knobs basically is all you need. You can also put this link on, which will keep these the same, but I typically like to shift them separately in different directions. And then just this drive knob is another really big advantage of that, because it's just like really simple way to add saturation, and we saw that it actually has really decent results. And then finally, having a dry wet knob is kind of cool too, if you just want to add like a little grit to your vocal, or if you're trying to use this to maybe add a little bit of low end weight, a little bit of high end shimmer, then you can basically have a second, have like the raw vocal here, and then this would just be your low end. Actually, rather without the rack, you'd do it with using your dry wet knob. So you'd want to go straight through. But in my case, I do all the way wet because I'm trying to have one high piece and one low piece. Yeah, cool. Let me see here. So what I wanted to do with the utility is, now that I'm listening in mono,
She got that. She got that. She got that. She got that.
why is it all
She got that. She got that. She got that.
whoops, not that
She got.
one. Oh, turn that way too high.
She got that. She got that. She got that. She got that.
She got that. She got that. She got that. She got that. She got that.
Cool. So I'm gonna listen in mono to just this high piece.
She got that. Drop top. She got that. Drop top booty.
And just make sure there's
She got
no
that.
like weird cutouts.
She got that.
And sometimes what I'll do is I'll take this utility and turn it on. I'm gonna put it on just this one channel to listen to the effect here. And you can come in here. So when you're in the utility switching this, we'll say use just the left side of the stereo file, because stereo file is made up of 2 audio files, a left and a right. Use stereo, both right, which is just the right channel, right? Get rid of the left channel, or finally swap, which is just gonna switch them around. So what you can do if you're getting phasey results is just pick one, and listen to just which one sounds better, which one maybe sounds more on beat, because if there's phasing, then they're on and slightly off at other points. So just kind of pick one, whichever has like the best groove, or just pick one at random if you can't tell. For some reason, I always pick the left.
She got that. 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 She got that.
So now my vocals in mono by doing that, but I could get rid of any phase issues. And I can always add stereo width later in the chain. So if you're having like stereo problems from using a plugin like that, this is a quick way to kind of beat that, because working in mono is going to give you the opportunity to correct any phase issues and then add your own stereo width later, which we're going to talk about today. Cool. So
She got that.
So now it's in mono.
Top booty.
And let's see what I got next. So since I did that, I'm just going to go ahead and jump to CLA Vocals. I've talked about this before. One of my favorite plugins just for getting your vocal to sit in the mix well, because it's so easy. CLA Vocals. Always use your VST, of course. And because it's a vocal, I do want to use the stereo version, even though I'm coming in with a mono signal. I'm just going to pick a preset here. And there's actually a stereo. No, there isn't. Compress, delay, pitch. Oh, yeah, you can do stereo, wide, or spreader. So let's see if that alone changes things. So without it,
She got that. Drop top booty. She got that. Drop top booty.
so it adds a little bit of width,
Got that.
but I can add width better with other things.
She got that. She got that. She got that.
In the mix.
She got that. Drop top booty. She got that. Drop top booty. She got that. Drop top booty.
Back to stereo.
She got that. Drop top booty. She got that. Drop top booty. She got that.
Make sure that we aren't going crazy with our levels. Whoops, had that down there too, by the way.
She got that. Drop top booty.
Without it,
She got that. Drop top.
minus 3.5.
Got that. Drop top.
That first peak should be at minus 3.5. So with this on,
She got that. She got that.
we go to -1. So we'll just take our output down, maybe -4.
She got that. 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 Drop top booty.
Okay, and then just A/B if it sounds better or not.
She got that. Drop top booty. She got that. Drop top booty. She got that.
So it sounds like it's taking out a little low end from my vocal, which is probably a good thing. But maybe this treble stuff's doing something here. So
She got that. Drop top booty. 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 She got that.
That's all right. I think I kind of like the push better. I might come back and play with this again as my ears get fresh to that sound. But let's play with the reverb. Sometimes I'll use this reverb. I'll typically do my own, but we'll just see how it sounds.
She got that drop top booty. She got that drop top booty.
Yeah, neither of those really work for me. I think that typically this plugin is used on like pop songs, so they probably use a lot more reverb, but we got to keep reverb decently short in tech house. But I do like the delay, and just put a slap delay. So a slap delay is just a delay that they typically put on vocals, and I think the way that it works is that it like just duplicates the delay over, like it's a really short delay, but it adds, like, it can make your vocal thick, which is kind of hard to
She
explain.
got that drop top booty. She got that drop top booty.
Versus a regular delay.
Drop top booty. She got that drop top booty. She got that.
So you hear it's like a really short decay, but it can actually it added some width to the vocal. So without it,
She got that.
and with it,
Drop top booty.
just a tiny bit.
She got that.
Plus, the thing with width is that I think things being wide is mostly about the sound's relation to other sounds. So if you want something to sound wide, then other things need to sound mono. And typically you want your vocal to sound mono, at least be like in the middle. Obviously some width so it doesn't sound thin, but more in the middle because it's the center of your track. And especially when you're in a club that only has mono compatible speakers, you want that vocal to really cut through the mix, right? If you go to a lot of clubs and really pay attention to the music you're listening to versus that music inside of your studio or inside of your car, you'll notice the things that stand out are your kick, your hi-hat, your clap, and your vocal. You can almost always hear those elements, even if other things are being drowned out. And that's because those are your center elements. So you really don't want to have too much width on your vocals unless you're going for like maybe little side vocals that you want to be wide or feeling like they're panned or going side to side. But your main vocal, the main part that's talking, the hook, whatever it might be, that should always be in the center and then have some width in a controlled way. So there's CLA vocals, really quick and easy way to just kind of boost that vocal up a little bit. At this point, I'm probably going to throw Pro Q on because I think we need some EQ. In fact, I might grab EQ8 over here as well and EQ these guys a little bit. So I want my low to maybe roll off the top a bit, leave that space for the higher vocal, and I'll leave the low end for now and take it out with Pro Q. But then in the top, I'm going to take the low end out so we get some blend. That might be too much.
She got that. She got that.
Drop top booty.
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 Okay.
She got that.
Drop top booty.
Now with my Pro Q, I'm going to make sure I take out the low end. One of the reasons I didn't want to take the low end out with my Ableton EQ is I feel like that curve, that EQ curve's not super transparent and sometimes can add some bad resonance. And if you're using that a lot, especially in the low end and adding peaks and resonances around the same area, you're going to have a lot of buildup in your low end. That's going to make your bass sound like crap. And then you're going to be working on your bass, wondering why it's not getting better when it's not even your bass. So this, I think, is a more transparent curve. I wouldn't go anything crazier than like 24 or 30 because that's just too steep, and then you're going to have similar problems. Although resonance on Pro Q is probably more pleasing, if that makes sense. So I'm going to do a decent cut, maybe up into the 80 range, because I know that that's at least out of the way of my main bass harmonics without taking out too much weight, hopefully, from the vocal. Sometimes I can go higher. It just depends. You got to really listen, but 100 hertz probably isn't a bad starting point.
She got that drop top booty. 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 She got that drop top booty.
I think that sounds not too bad. Okay, continue this. I'm going to change this to Vox drop top. Let's see. Little Altar Boy. Okay, we want to put our own reverb on this and then our own delay. So things are getting pushed over here. For reverb, I think I'm going to try my plate reverb from Sound Toys as well. Little Altar Boy. And right away, I'm going to Command G this guy to turn it into a group. Let me put a utility here just to give us some space on the side. Push things this way. Okay, so you guys have probably seen this a few times. Create a chain. This will be plate verb. Create a new chain. This is going to be dry. So this will be my dry vocal. This will be my reverb. My plate, I'm going to put it at I think I typically want my plate to be shorter. So like 1 second, I think would be good.
She got that
Let's listen to the reverb by itself.
drop top booty. She got that drop top booty. She got that drop top booty. She got that.
1 second, warm up.
She got that drop top booty. She got that drop top booty. She got that drop top. She got that drop top booty.
Cool. And then with the vocal.
She got that drop top booty.
And last but not least, side chain. Whoops. Compressor, rather. Stick it on my plate verb. Go to my plate verb. Open this up. Whoops. My compressor. Side chain. Box drop top. So now the vocal is going to be side chaining the reverb down. We're going to go infinity to 1 ratio. Quick attack. Leave the release, and then we can fix it if we need to. Knee all the way down to 0. Knee all the way down to 0.
She got that.
Drop your threshold.
She got that. 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 Drop top booty. She got that. Drop top booty. She got that. Drop top booty.
And now I can mix it to taste.
She got that. Drop top booty. 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 She got that. Drop top booty.
Okay, and I'm going to put some EQs before my reverb to take out just the low end, because I don't want the low end of the vocal hitting the reverb plugin. So everything going into the reverb plugin will be high passed to like 350.
She got that. Drop top booty.
Which should clean up our low mids.
She got that. Drop top booty. She got that.
And then for the hell of it, I'm going to put a glue compressor in this chain as well. And I'm actually going to reverb, or I'm going to compress the reverb a little bit. And the trick here is that you just want the peaks to be sitting at the same volume coming out after compression as before compression. And then you can, if it's louder because you compressed it, then you'll just use this little mixer to turn it down a little bit. So the reason why is because you can compress the hell out of your reverb. So like when we say, oh, don't over compress something, we're talking about dynamics, right? We're talking about keeping your transients sharp. And that's why you don't want to over compress, because you don't want to squash the transients. But with reverb, we actually don't care. We can squash the hell out of our reverb because we don't need any transients in our reverb, right? I mean, I'm literally ducking the transients in my reverb right now. But by compressing it, I'm making room in my mix for other elements, even though it's going to sound just as loud as it does uncompressed. So let's just compress this. We want to have a fast attack, fast release, because we're just kind of squashing it. Get my Synoxis, of course. Turn it off. -8 looks like with the compressor. So it's sitting about the same, but you can hear already that it sounds louder. So come back to my mixer. And just like that, I saved some headroom. Cool. Last thing I want to do is put some delays on here. And my favorite delay is going to be H delay. Although I do use Ableton's delay sometimes as well. So you can see right here already, I have this H delay rack. It's got the same thing set up. We got an EQ after the delay, and then I got a dry. Here's my delay mix, which should typically be at 100% anyway. And then the BPM, I can just twist these knobs here to play around. But I will just use this for the heck of it. I guess this works. This does like the low pass knob, high pass knob, stuff like that. Just another way that I can be faster, right? It's all about workflow. So of course, feedback is responsible for like the length of the delays continuing on. So it's like how much the delay goes back into the delay unit. So if you had it all the way down, it would just do a single delay. A little bit. And if it's really long, it'll last forever. Obviously, you want to hone that in a little bit, right? Here, let's see, 16. And we can play with the modulation here as well. One thing to keep in mind with H delay, you got to be a little careful because watch, if I solo my H delay, I go to my master, I go to my spectrum, and can't see it right now, but see that way down here at -100? This is the noise floor. So see this little knob right here? This is like changing between analog, different analog emulations. And analog gear has noise. So, of course, we have a little noise here, which is fine. Actually, some of this in your plugin chains actually will be really good. It's going to add some warmth, some analog warmth that we're always talking about. How the hell do you add that? Noise. Just a little bit of noise sitting in the bottom is going to add that. But if you start having a bunch of H delay instances across your project, as well as other plugins that are going to have noise, you're going to have a big buildup. And before you know it, you're going to be sitting here listening to your track, not playing, and just and then you'll realize what it is. You'll have to come in here and turn all of them off. But if you turn this off, then it would go away. So see, this is from something else in my chain. Something else in my chain is just making noise. So now I'm going to have to go back and figure out what. But I'll bear you guys that boredom. Okay, so we got some cool modulation on here. It's a little too much, probably. Oh, without my dry, it's going to sound out of time. Whoops. So I want to do a high pass again, take out everything under like 250. Okay. And I'm just going to copy this side chain from my reverb. Where to go? Compressor. Hold Option, drag it over after my delay. Probably put that first. So this dotted eighth sounds kind of cool right now. Sometimes I think it sounds cool, and then later I think it sounds dumb. But for now, it's pretty cool. I can dig it. The real question is, do I want my H delay before or after my reverb? And there's no correct answer, because really the question is, do I want the delays to sound like they're going through the reverb or not? And it just depends. So let's listen to it. I think I like it before better. Let me know in the chat what you guys think. Got a good question from Anthony Zamota. He says, what makes a plate reverb the correct choice of reverb? What is plate reverb for versus other types of reverb? That's a good question. Let me grab my notes really quick. I literally wrote this down, learned it from somebody at some point. Probably Zermello. Yeah, Zermello. Really good producer. I follow him. You can follow him online, pay for some of his tutorials. He has a lot of really, really good mixing content. And he had this whole thing about reverb. So I'll talk a little bit about it. So the reverbs that I use plates. And I guess to answer your question first, I chose the plate because the plate is a really bright reverb, and you typically keep them shorter. So a plate reverb was like something they created in the 70s or 80s or something, where like you could strike a plate and then hear the resonances off the plate, something like that. So that's where they came from. But because it's a bright reverb, it really works to add size to my vocals without pushing them to the back of my mix. So that's why I chose a plate. And the other things I'll use my plate for might be my lead synth, or yeah, I mean, that's maybe some noise candy. If I really wanted it to stay in the front of the mix while having some size and feeling like it's in a bit of a room, then I use my plate. Some of the other reverb types are, I mean, there's a lot more than just these four, but the ones I use are a hall reverb. I use the hall reverb, and I'll actually show you it here in this return channel. So what I'm doing here is I have just the reverb, everything's coming in here. This is a return, so it's like using the rack without having a second chain here, because this whole thing is going to be the wet signal, and you tell your track how much you want to send to the wet signal using this. So if I'm sending this, it's probably the wrong thing to send, but maybe actually, what is this, cowbells? Yeah, just listen to this really quick. So I could send my cowbells to my dark room or my dark hall, and I call it a dark hall because if you look at it, this is my EQ before Valhalla room, and I'm cutting it pretty harshly down at like 300, and then I'm doing kind of a slow roll off at like 2.2K. So this is really no high end, no low end. Why am I doing that? Well, reverb, the way it works is that it goes out, it bounces off walls, and it comes back. That's what gives you the feeling that you're in a room. If you're in a really big room, those frequencies take longer to get to the back wall and longer to get back to your ear. That's what makes it sound far away, right? But it's more than that, because what happens with reverb is that the high end doesn't get bounced back as well as the mid, and the low end doesn't get bounced back as well as the mid. So in a short reverb, you're going to have more frequency spectrum in the reverb. In a longer reverb, in a bigger room, that frequency range that's returning to your ears is shrinking and shrinking. So what I'm doing with this EQ is giving the effect that this sound is further away than it is by cutting out the high and low end of the reverb. So that's what I do in a hall. And to look at this reverb, I keep a higher decay. So this is at a second, whereas the vocal, I was using it like almost a half second. So if we send my cowbells to the deep room, you can see how that starts to push it away rather than keep it in the front. The other rooms that I use are a tiled room and a dark wood room. A tiled room is just a good room of choice to use for your drums. So when people say like you need to put your drums in a room, I choose to use a tiled room. I have a cutoff around 350 hertz, a high pass, and that's it. I don't cut out the high end because I want to keep the high end of the reverb. Going into Valhalla Vintage Verb, it looks like I have a shorter decay, half a second, and I'm doing nothing with this utility. So that's what I use to send to my room, like my clap, maybe my hi-hat, if I want to put them in a bit of a room, some of my tops. And then finally, I have a dark wood room, kind of similar to my hall verb. I have a high pass at about 250, so a little bit more low end because this one is closer than my hall. And I roll off the high end, but not as sharply. I have a hollow room again. It's a lot like my other one. So I have it at 0.9 seconds. I could also put this at like 0.5 seconds. It just depends, but somewhere between half a second and a second is probably best. And this I use for like mid percussive stuff where I want them to have a bit of a room, but I don't want them taking up any high end in the mix. That's great for like this cowbell, or if you have claves or like wood blocks, stuff like that, or even any percussive or ear candy that's not like in the front of the mix. That's not like the main thing you're listening to. It's just sitting over there. I'll use my wood room for that. And just to show as well, another thing I do is I put this utility at the end and I actually make it more mono, because in this darker room, I want the sound to be more mono and not, or I want the reverb to sound more mono and not more stereo, because as things go further away and come back to us, they lose stereo width as well. So you lose some of your vertical, your frequency spectrum, you lose some of your horizontal in your width. So hopefully that answers your question. Do I use anything for transients? That's Christian Miranda. I think you're asking about like making my transient sharper or something like that, like a transient shaper. And I just started using this one called Smack Attack. This is a Waves plugin. Looks like this. You can increase the attack on the transients using this, and you can actually reduce the sustain of transients. So if you have like a drum loop where maybe kind of the sustain on things is too long, but the attack is kind of weak, you can increase the attack, you can decrease the sustain, and you can actually use these little curves as well to change how snappy or like how much decay it has, rather. Of course, dry wet knob, stuff like that. And then you can choose to limit or clip your drums. But man, this thing is sweet. I put it on some drums, and it's just a quick way to make them cut through the mix, especially like little percussive elements. Let me make sure I get rid of that. Wherever I put it. All right, so hopefully that answered your questions, guys. Let me get back in here. So we have delay, we have reverb. I think we have everything we want. Cool. All right, so it's 6:56. I think I'm going to call it quits. So hopefully you guys got something out of that. That's like a lot of the vocal techniques I use. Vocals are a big part of my songs, and I've really been focusing this last year on writing my own vocals. I got to tell you, when you first start writing your own vocals, they kind of suck. You have no timing, and that's normal. So just keep writing them. Just keep coming up with loops. We're lucky. In house and techno, you can literally say 5 words and it's a song. Now what did I do? But if you keep writing, eventually you will come up with catchier and catchier things. It's just a matter of practice, like anything else. The more you do it, the more clever I think you start getting. And I'm starting to be pretty happy with like the little vocals I come up with in my head and playing around with them. So yeah, there it is for vocals. Next week I might talk about sound designing, some like ear candy and maybe synths. I think that's kind of what we need, is like a main melodic element as well as just some cool ear candy. Maybe we'll take our drop one and we'll start duplicating this out to get a full drop as well as a build section, so that we can start to see this song come together. Starting to sound kind of cool, right? All right, so let's go check. Yep, we got a demo from Anthony Zamota, number 1. Let's see here, new web. Here we go. All right, let's hear it. Ableton OBS. Oh. Nice, man. First of all, good track. I'm really digging it. I can see some improvements since your last one that you brought in, man. This one's slumping. To answer your question, should we be sending self-mastered stuff, or would you rather listen to unmastered? I think I talked about it last week. I mix my songs all into a master limiter, so feel free to send it with the master or without. But I think with the master is good because it'll help us pinpoint mixing issues that are going into the master chain and maybe causing problems as well. Because I think it just gives you a more realistic view of what your track's really going to sound like playing in a club. So I got a few things here. First of all, the percussion in this track is sick, dude. I'm really digging it. You got a lot of really cool like mid percussive sounds that really add a lot of groove to it. I like the off claps and stuff as well. FigRX23, yes, definitely send your track, man. I don't think anybody else has sent one yet, so please send it over and we'll give it a quick listen. So back to Anthony. Let's see. I wrote the clap is really crispy, but it feels like it lacks a little bit of low end weight. So I like the clap, but it just feels like, I don't know, like I'm expecting more weight in the low end. So that could come from either EQing out too much, like maybe your EQ curve is sitting at 200, 250, 300. It can maybe come back down to like 150 just to get some weight there. Or it's just the sample itself doesn't have any low end in that part of the clap, which is fine because then we can just layer a clap with some low end, or even drop another a clap sample down a few semitones, make sure it's still in key, or at least sort of in key, because they don't always have a key. But it could just feel some weight down there. So I think some layering there can get your kick or get your clap really driving the track. And then make sure that when you do like the little off claps, though, that you vary the velocity or the volume on those so that they're a little bit quieter than your on claps. It'll really add some groove there. I think that over here in your breakdowns, let's see this one. I think that you could benefit from some white noise, just downlifters, some things that create some release, just right? Because it feels like I just go into these little breaks and it's not a very big moment, but they're really a release, right? It's all about tension and release. And it's a release from the break and then the beginning of like a new tension rise. So it really, you want people to feel that when they're dancing to your music, is just those changes, those big changes. And something as little as just little white noise downlifters will really add that effect. Another thing you could do is put like a crash there and let it fade into the track there. More deep house. Yeah, I definitely give feedback on deep house, at least on the mix or drums, things like that. But yeah, man, I agree with Christian Miranda. That's a super dope track, man. I really like it. I like this lead right here. I think you could have a little brightness or sheen on that. Maybe by even adding a plate reverb to that actually can give you some high-end sheen. But other than that, it sounds really good in the mix. The one thing... that little like laser, wah, 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 that's dope. I think it can come up a little bit in the mix, or even what you might be able to do is put like a side chain or a multi-band side chain on that other element, the first lead from the first two drops. Put it on it just from this little so that it cuts the mix, because it's like the new thing that you're listening to, and then the next time, or like when it's not playing, the lead will be as loud as it should be. But you got to be really subtle there, just because it feels like a little bit of frequency masking, and like my ear isn't sure which one to focus on. And then finally, the open hat feels like it's a little drowned, and it's like sitting back in the mix. Yeah, so I just think that main open hat, the one trick I would recommend is doing this little sidechain trick with the click track. So you have your open hat click track, and what you do is actually just put on maybe like your tops and any other drum loops or perks that will have the little sidechain compressor from the open hat click track. That's just going to give some room for that open hat to shine in its space. As well as making sure that it's even loud enough. So like, come look at your reference. So here's my reference. Do I have one? I don't have one right now. But you listen to your reference track, see where their hat is hitting, and you can do this little high pass trick, right? To see, okay, here's my open hat. If I put my mouse right around the average, I see that I'm hitting at like -44. Some tracks have their hi-hat lower, their open hat, but -44 is pretty low. I see them get as high as like -38, and that's just kind of like really sitting strong in the mix. So it depends on your style, but I think that the open hat could just come in a little bit more. It's like I said earlier, one of the main things you hear in mono at the club is that open hat, and it's a very driving part of the track. So definitely take a look there. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got for you, man. Oh, one last thing. The snare roll in the break down right here. I think that you could take the low end out of it as you're increasing here, just to pull some of the weight back, so that when the drop comes back, it comes back with more punch, because there's a lot of low end in that snare, and which is typical in a snare roll. But if you start taking just a little bit away over time, then when it comes back with full low end of your track, it's really going to punch your listeners in the chest and make them want to put their hands up. Cool. But anyway, dope track, man. Keep at it. I've been loving the music. So let's see if we got another demo. Nothing yet. Please send in the demos, guys. Feedback is super important. So let's go take a peek at some of my tracks. Here is my other one's not in here. So I got a collaboration with Roy Havens. I'm going to show you guys that one probably next week after I get a little bit more time to work on it. But I'm going to play this demo really quick of myself while we're waiting for some more tracks. Send it to, says at the top, to Juan at wontonmusic.com if you did want to get a listen on that one. So here we go. Gonna jump ahead a little. Let me know what you guys think of this one in the chat. Light me up.
DJ, take me down deeper. Go deeper. I wanna go deeper. Go deeper. I wanna go deeper. I wanna go deeper.
Okay, so this one's still in progress. Got a lot of work to do on that second drop, but get the idea there. Appreciate the kind of words, playing around with it. So you say you want to know how to make that build up, wind up sound. Talking about that. It's like my best attempt. Kind of like that. Yeah, I made that in Operator. Actually, I want to say that Domi Splash made that. I'm totally gonna take credit for it. He made it originally. It was Operator Patch. I played with it to get it to kind of do this build up. I can show you guys that next week. I think it's like a kind of speed up, slow down effect thing that I use all the time. So I'll definitely try to show that maybe next week. That's actually a great time to show it because next week I want to work on ear candy, sound design of like leads and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll write that down. Make sure to remember that. Submit this to Ernesto's Wednesday Roast. Most definitely. If you guys aren't already, check out Ernesto's Wednesday Roast. That's kind of what pushed me to do this myself as well. I got a lot of good feedback from him and a lot of the DJs and producers over there. And there's a lot of big name producers hanging out in that chat as well. So put yourself on the line, get some really good feedback. I think this track's probably like a session or two away from submitting because Ernesto will only listen to your track once because he wants you to finish them. So yeah, once this gets a little closer, we'll send it in as well as my collab with Roy Havens. So one last track it looks like we'll listen to. I see you dropped it in the chat, so let me go find that. Cool. So here we go. Blue Mask, Talking With My Mind. That's FegRX23. Blue Mask. Okay.
Time stands still without me in your arms. There's no reason to sound the alarms. Cause what we got is real. I found the words for what I feel. Don't understand my lines. That's cause I'm talking with my mind. Talking with my mind. Communication on the rise. Don't understand my Cause I'm talking with my mind. Talking with my mind. My mind. My mind. Talking with my mind. My mind. My mind. Talking with my mind. My mind. My mind. Talking with my mind.
Dope, man. Cool track. Where do I start? So I'm curious, is this your vocal or where did you get the vocal? Let us know in the chat. Just curious kind of where you got it because it's a pretty good vocal, really, really well recorded. So whoever did it, it's pretty sweet. Curious how you found it, or if you just found it online, or if it's somebody you know. One thing about the vocal, it feels a tiny bit too loud in the mix, which paid a singer and you process it. That's dope. Yeah, man. Getting unique vocals is definitely step one in making good tracks. So it definitely puts you in the right place for this one. So I see the style you're going for, and I dig it, man. I think you do a really good job of kind of capturing that sound. As I was saying, the vocal feels, excuse me, the vocal feels a tiny bit too loud. It's a good problem to have because sometimes we can't get our vocals loud enough. But I think if you just turned it down, I mean, not even a dB probably, it would just sit a little bit better in the mix because it just sounds like it's overtaking some of the other elements. Which, speaking of the other elements, maybe it's hard to put my ear on, but it feels like there's a lot of things going into big reverbs, and there's starting to be kind of a buildup of the reverb. So what that's doing is that the front of your mix sounds good. I can hear your drums and your crispiness, but the back of your mix, like the mid elements and some of the background elements, including that reverb, feels a little washed out in the back. So it's really hard to put my ear on those things back there because there's just a little too much going on. So I think that it's probably a reverb. Maybe you just turn down the reverb on some of those background elements. Just bring the volume of the reverb down depending on how you're doing it. If you're doing it like in chain, or if you're doing it in parallel. If it's in parallel, just bring the reverb volume down. If it's in the chain, that maybe bring the dry wet just down a little bit, or even potentially reduce the decay on whatever that long reverb is. You do have a lot of reverb on the vocal, and that should kind of take precedence over the reverb of those background elements, and it kind of gets washed out back there until the end when it's like just the vocal singing. I could finally hear that. So that's what I think there. Another way would just be using a side chain on those reverbs to duck out of the way of the vocal, duck out of the way of your main drums, and duck out of the way of like the elements that are creating those reverbs. But again, it just depends on how you're putting that reverb on there. Otherwise, the only other thing that I could really think of, since this isn't really the style that I typically produce, you do a pretty decent job of carrying the energy through and having like pretty good transitions. I really like your pre-drop sections. You do a good job there as well. I just think that maybe you're missing like just those downlifters, or sometimes your crash is a little too quiet too, or maybe it's just subdued and pushed to the back. But those things can create a little bit more release, and I think specifically this spot right here. So see, the only thing that tells me that like the new section started is the bass comes in, and if there was just something there with a little bit more of like a snap or attack, I guess, even just like a white noise, it would make that transition right there a little smoother. But that's being pretty nitpicky. Otherwise, pretty cool track, man. I dig it. Sounds like you really were kind of nailing what you were going for, so keep it up. And if you haven't already, make sure to follow. Come hang out with us every Monday night. we'll do more feedback and continue to grow our producer community. You are welcome. All right. Anybody else? Let's go double check. Yep, we got the Beehive. This will be the last demo for my homies over here. Let's see. He even gave us something good to look at. All right, let's hear it. Clap that ass. Dope track, yo. Dope track, you two. Let me see. where can I really say anything here? First of all, those 303s are nasty when they come in right here at the beginning. And then the lasers you have in the second drop are lit, bro. You guys make such good sounds. Super dig it. Send me some of your samples sometime so I can put them in my tracks because those are dope. It's really hard to put my ear on what's going on. It sounds like maybe there's a little bit of frequency masking between just the leads. You do have a lot of sounds in there. I think production wise, you put them in the right place, like songwriting wise, rather. Um, they're all working together just fine. I think there's just some frequency masking, so maybe using like some multi-band sidechain compression on some of those elements to each other, kind of picking which one is going to take the lead at certain times will help a little bit there, because it gets a little tough at times to put my ears on like the song as a whole because it feels like things are starting to get a little muddy. But other than that, I mean, there's really not much I got for you guys, dude. This track's pretty sick. I think the vocal, I think you're right, it needs a tiny bit of work because it kind of comes and goes. Sometimes it sounds like it's at the right volume, and sometimes certain words sound like they're a little too quiet. So that tells me right away it needs to be compressed so that you get your peaks a little closer together. CLA vocals will probably be really easy on that. Stick a preset on CLA vocals if you have it, and get that compression setting right, and that'll give it a little more smack and kind of put it up in the mix. It also sounds a little dry delay wise, like there's no delay on it. I think that it would benefit from at least a slap delay, maybe even like a little eighth delay, just a little bit to give it some space. It does sound like it's in a reverb, but it sounds like that reverb's pushing it back as well. So that might also be the problem. And I know we talked about that in this stream. So you can solve that by either using a brighter reverb if you're using like a dark reverb, and then also making sure that you definitely sidechain the reverb on the vocal, because that'll keep the vocal from feeling like it's getting pushed back when you're adding reverb to it. Yeah, the slap delay I think would help as well for the volume. But that, I mean, that's it, man. That's all I got for you. This track feels pretty close to done. So really good job. That was your first time using an original vocal, and it's really catchy one. So keep at it. And yeah, man, dope stuff. We should get together on a track sometime soon. Again, I guess. I have done a reverb for my homies over here, Beehive, not reverb, a remix for my homies. And that was a lot of fun. So yeah, let's do it again sometime. Other than that, that's it, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and call it a day a little bit early so me and my girlfriend can go get some dinner without her being really mad at me for spending all my time playing with my toys. Anyways, man, till next time, guys, keep producing, stay curious, send me those demos, and I'll see you guys back here next Monday night for episode 5, sound design and ear candy. All right, till then, stay curious, y'all. Peace.
You've never tried it? That's fine because I have so many. Here, you want one? Okay. What's your Visto? I